Okay, yeah, we're live now.
Oh, okay.
But nobody can see us.
Oh, okay.
It's Friday night. Nobody's gonna watch this anyhow, so you can say what you want.
Okay. You know that's one of the worst things you can say to me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chet unleashed.
Yeah. Well, it's fun.
I just watched the video. Speaking of pre-subs, I just watched the video.
Yeah.
Remember Chris, the pre-sub Calvinist Reformed Army Chris?
Oh yeah, he's my favorite rapper.
Yeah, he just started. Well, he's had a channel for a while, but he's doing something that suspiciously looks like what I do. Critiquing Christians and apostates. I love you, Chris.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
He's not critiquing atheists?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But I was in there and I gave him a hard time.
That's cool. That'll be a channel I don't subscribe to.
Are you subscribed to my channel?
Yes.
Oh. Okay, let me tell my mom and dad that I'm lying.
Okay.
Because I'm sure my mom wants to know how to talk to a pre-sub.
I'm sure.
Did you take the critical reasoning test?
I didn't even know about it. I don't know how I missed that. I watched the video on it today, and it turns out I would have got them all correct, of course, but I didn't watch it. I didn't know it was going on. When did you promote that on the YouTube or what?
Yeah,
was that a Facebook thing?
Twitter, Facebook.
No. I know. I'm never going to pay as much attention to you as you'd like, Doug. I'm sorry.
I'm not a narcissist, Chet.
What?
And I'm not defensive.
I know, and I never poke at you for either of those things, ever. I would never do that.
Oh, I have to give out pine points here. All
right.
1,000 pine points to Skeptical Jed. 1,000 pine points. Now remember, once you get to 1,000,000 pine points, you get an all-expense paid vacation with me to Las Vegas, Nevada. We'll stay at the Tropicana for one glorious night. The Tropicana, the top tier of Vegas hotels. Actually, wouldn't it be funny?
It's in a good location. At least when I was last there, it's a good location. Just old building.
No. It's on the south side, across from Mandalay Bay. It's a horrible location.
Treasure Island. Like what do you?
Treasure Island.
You like to be further up towards the Needle? Is that you like to be up that way?
Well, Treasure Island's right across from the Outback Steakhouse, so.
Okay.
That's how you should decide where to stay in Las Vegas.
That's how you decide by where the nearest Outback Steakhouse is.
Yeah. I look too dark, don't I? My lighting's not quite right. Kind
of. My room's pretty bright right now.
Yeah, that's okay. So this is an informal, impromptu live stream, and Chet is trying to lead someone in hell where he lives. And... and it was with a guy who initially talked to you. How long has this conversation been going on?
Oh, I would 4 to 6 months. I can't remember exactly. So basically, my neighbors are very religious, but I'm really good friends with them. We spend a lot of time just sharing things out front and playing with their kids and different things. And so basically the husband over there had told me that he had a friend that was taking an apologetics class and he needed to speak with someone that had a very different worldview than he did, and asked if I would do it. So I did. And he came over and he was supposed to be here that first time for a half an hour is what he said, just to handle like the basic questions for this class he was taking. And he left about 2.5 hours later.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So if for people listening, like when I talk about presuppositional apologetics and so forth, this is just not theoretical stuff. These are real people with real conversations with a guy like Chet who knock on doors or who are your neighbors. And and presuppositional apologetics are probably the most stubborn form of apologetics because basically they're right by definition. And
Yes.
So we're going to talk about what's the best way to do this. So how did he?
Yeah. Go ahead.
He started with evidential type stuff, and then when you kind of knocked that down, he went to presuppositional, right?
Right. So that first conversation when he came over was he just had to ask some basic questions, and he was basically doing SE from a Christian standpoint where he wasn't supposed to talk too much. But once we got through that, then we started talking about different things, cosmology and things. His understanding of the Big Bang was very wrong. He didn't even know what special pleading was. It was obvious he was really new.
So he's an average person. You're describing the average person who walks on the street. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's a very nice guy. If I'm honest, he's friendlier than I am.
That doesn't take much.
Yeah, I know. So,
is there a chance he might be watching right now? Does he know about
I don't
me?
think so. I told him about your channel the first time. I actually recommended that he come on and talk to you, but he hasn't taken that up. So I don't think he would be watching right now.
I guess we shouldn't say his
name.
But
I can let him know, yeah. Joe. There's a billion Joes. It'd be a little difficult to find him. But anyway, and we had a really nice conversation that time. And then he's just sort of texted me off and on since then, just like, hey, what's up? How's it going? You doing all right? And then he texted me the other day and he was like, I didn't represent Christ properly to you. And that's a disservice to God and to you and to myself. And, if you'll talk to me again, I'd like to talk to you again to do better. And that's fine. Okay. I said, so today we chatted again.
So he felt guilt.
And he was, yes, I asked him about that. I said, you feel guilty. That's too bad. I actually apologized when he texted me initially. I said, I just wanted to help you with your class. I want you to be the best apologist you can be. And I'm sorry if I caused you any additional stress.
I want you to be the best apologist you can be.
Oh, I do. You don't want to, if you're going to defeat an idea or an ideology, you want to defeat the best people, I think, right? Or no? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah, because then the victory is all that more sweet. It's all about winning, Chet. Charlie Sheen, winning.
Yeah. So, so today we did a video chat. Had some friendly banter, whatever, about the upcoming UFC and all that. And then he just started in immediately with the very first question from the script, the precept script,
And
it was a long talk, but
what was the first question?
Huh? Yeah, it's that, can you be wrong about everything you know? And immediately I went, should I have to watch my language on this? Because
Chet, this one time only, I'm going to allow you to swear, but if you do, can you please whisper?
Yeah. Sure. So I was like, oh, shit. And I just went back like that. I tried to put a stop to it, honestly, right away. I said, oh, no, Joe. I said, you've regressed. I said, you've gone to this really silly argument now. And he took that pretty well, considering. But I'm so, we've been through this a lot, Doug, whether just in conversations or watching you do it or back in Blab days, all of that stuff. But I decided to just, cater to it and play along. And of course, I said, no, I can't be wrong about everything. I said, I know I'm not your God. The old standard is too easy, which he just kind of went with, but over and over again, his main question was, what's your standard for truth?
And what did you
Right?
say?
I said, what is truth? What's truth? Truth is that which comports with reality. What's reality? Those things that can be tested, observed, repeated, so on and so forth. And that was not good enough for him because it wasn't the Bible. So it always came back to, again and again, the scripture says this. And I would say, why does that matter? And he would say, well, because that's the truth. And I say, how do you know it's the truth? Because it says it's the truth. And I would repeat. So I would just roll with it. And then, the other questions come along, are you a brain in a vat? Just absolutely standard script stuff. And I'm, excuse me. And it's so frustrating, I guess, is to put it lightly, to see someone in that condition. I'll call it a condition of simply being convinced that their argument is valid based on them simply saying that scripture is valid.
You do realize that none of this is actually the truth from his perspective. Like this is not the reason why he believes. Like,
oh, I've been digging at that. I dug at that too, and he avoided it because he gets uncomfortable every time. I straight up told him. I said, I don't believe any of this is why you believe. I said, you had an experience, because he told me he had an experience. And he also, so here's the other thing. He's bouncing back and forth between Calvinistic ideas and Arminian ideas when it suits him.
Did you ask him?
He doesn't know what he fully believes.
Did you ask him, did he recently watch Matt Slick or Saitan Bruggencate or read Greg Bonson? Or, well, where did he get these ideas from? Did they just pop in his head?
No, I'm assuming they came from his apologetics class. And I tried to find out, and he wouldn't really specify that either. But I imagine after our first talk, he went back to his instructors and said, hey, this guy gave me answers I don't understand. Can you help me? And they said, yeah, go back with this, question his reasoning. He's being reasonable and using logic. Therefore, you must attack those things. So that was his other thing. And I called him out on it. So I found with precepts, they tend to reify things like the laws of logic.
Yeah.
As though they are an existing entity that isn't just a descriptive thing that humans made up. And they want to know, this was the other thing. What do you attribute those to? What do you attribute the laws of logic to?
And what did you say?
I said, why do they need to be attributed to anything? They're simply observations that we've labeled as the laws of logic.
Yeah, the way I would answer that, I would say I attribute it to existence.
Well, I told him that we ran through presuppositions, which he didn't. For being a presuppositionalist, he didn't really understand how those are supposed to work either. But I ran through that. I consider logic to be a natural property of the universe, and it's covered in my presuppositions.
Okay, so you said all
here
that.
it is, without God. Yeah, I went the whole thing, but that's not acceptable because I didn't mention God first. So the whole thing was, here's how it went. I swear, I'm not even kidding. 25 times in the conversation, he would say, you can't have logic without God. I say, okay, demonstrate that. And you're demonstrating it right now. That's it. And I would just say, okay, not convinced. I don't know. That's why I'm wondering, what do you do with someone who's going to do that? Other than hang up on them.
Here's a little trick you can use. You can basically say something like, well, what is that? The main three laws of logic: non-contradiction, identity. Well, let's take identity. The law of identity. How would that even make sense if the universe doesn't exist? So doesn't it make sense that that the law of identity is a property of the universe's existence? Does that make sense? And then ask a question right at the end of that. Does that make sense? And of course that makes sense. You can't have the law of identity if you don't have anything to identify.
Okay.
And then he would have to say, yeah, that does make sense.
Well, you would think he would have to. You would think he would have to say that. You know, and then he also wants to argue that if I'm using reason, I'm circular. So using reason to justify my reason. Just like he's using the Bible. Apparently that is equal to using the Bible to justify your whole view of reality through the Bible.
So did he ask you
if
if you thought your reasoning was reliable?
Yes.
And what did you say to that?
Trying to remember. I said something along the lines of it's not infallible, but there are ways to test to make sure that it is reliable.
Yeah.
And the other thing that it came down to was certainty versus non-certainty, as usual. What are you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking that whenever a precept asks you about the reliability of your reasoning, try to shock them and say something like, "No, my reasoning is probably not reliable most of the time, and I don't think yours is either, and I don't think humanity's is very good." Now they're going to like, so you hit them with the shock factor, and then you say something like, "But this is obvious, right? Because we have 8 billion people on this planet almost, and at least 7 billion of them are not true Christians. How can their reasoning be good? Like, how can humanity's reasoning be good if most people are not Christian?" You know, that's a rhetorical device, but it kind of works.
Yeah. And it's a little difficult because he made it clear many times that, you know, it's been revealed to him in a way that he can be certain.
Oh, he used that line.
Here was the absolutely he did. But here's the thing. As soon as I questioned him about babies burning in hell forever, he became an Arminian.
That's funny. So he doesn't like babies burning in hell then?
No, that made him very uncomfortable.
Yeah. That's good.
I asked him, I said, okay, so God regenerates all babies then? And he said, yes. So he tried to you know, the point of that is to make him uncomfortable. But yes, I mean, essentially, he was perfectly fine with the poof question as well. He's fine with God drowning people for no reason.
Did you use the word Jesus,
other than he thinks it's right? Yeah, I used Jesus. Yes, of course.
And he was okay with Jesus.
I made sure he was
babies.
Trinitarian. He's okay with Jesus drowning babies because here's the other thing. We can't know the mind of God, but also he is okay with God's nature.
So do you feel that he basically is a servant, a slave to Christ because he's scared to burn in hell forever and ever?
I told him I think he's scared, and I told him I think it's because of hell. Yeah, and he denied that. But
he denied it.
I didn't believe. Yeah, I didn't believe him.
He's not scared to go to hell? I mean, if he wasn't a Christian?
Well, and I asked him what his description of hell was like, if it was, you know, fire, brimstone, eternal torture, all that. And he said yes, because, you know, we've heard different ideas of hell. So here's a big thing I guess I'd like some feedback on. I asked him where his God got his knowledge from. How did his God come to this knowledge that he's trusting? And he called me stupid. He said I'm not dumb enough to ask that question. Which to me meant
you're not smart enough to ask that question.
Which meant he didn't know what the hell to say. Because my questioning then is, if you don't know how your God came to his knowledge, how do you know that it's accurate and true and worth following?
When you say his knowledge, you mean Joe's knowledge? Or God's?
No.
God from God's perspective?
Anything that God knows. How does God know anything? Where did that information come
from? Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay. So you basically were questioning him. How do you explain the nature of his deity? Basically, is what you're asking.
Essentially, yeah. Well, he's saying he told me he believes the Bible is infallible. I said which version, you know, so on and so forth. But basically, he said that it's all right and perfect. But like, so if somebody tells me something very specific about how to live my life, I'm going to ask them, how did you realize that that's the right way to do it, or the truth, or whatever? But people don't seem, they give God a pass on that for whatever reason. He you know, his thing, he defaulted to, well, God is knowledge. Just like God is love and God is energy and God, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So then you have to say, well, then why do we have a word for knowledge and a word for God? Why is there a difference there? But
did you ask
yeah,
him?
I think that's a tricky one for someone. Well, hold on.
Okay.
I just think that's a tricky one for someone who's being incredibly subservient to anything, to not know why they're following what they're following. Like, why is that justified? Other than that thing says that it's justified. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great question, because when a presuppositional apologist asks the unbeliever, the atheist, how do you justify X? And it doesn't even matter what X is.
Yes.
You can say anything you want at that point, as long as you ask the question back, how do you justify your God's nature? Why is it that nature and not something else? Is it arbitrary? Is there a reason? If there's no reason, it's arbitrary. Is God an arbitrary God? And so, and there is no answer. They can't. All they can say is, well, it is what it is. It's a brute fact. And so then you can say, well, if the nature of your God is a brute fact, then my presupposition that the universe exists and has the properties it has is also a brute fact. And my brute fact is better than your brute fact because it's simpler. Like, how many different concepts of deities do we have on this planet, with different wills and desires and commands and denominations and religions and so forth? Whereas it seems like most people on the planet, of course there's some crazies out there, most people look around and say, yeah, I'm breathing in air. Yeah, there's a cloud.
That's yeah. Well, that's when I run into, when they say, how do you account for something? Theists they're just stuck that everything has to have come from a beginning deity of some kind. Like, it's possible the universe was eternal and these were just part of it. And I don't have to say it came out of this dude or this woman or this elephant or whatever you're worshiping, right? I mean, am I wrong there, or do
No.
you see? I don't. Okay.
But Matt is asking you a question, Chet. Is the precept trying to convince you? Of course, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yes. He made that very clear. He invited me to church. I said, no, thank you. I wouldn't invite you to an evolution conference. And he laughed at that because he knows me or whatever. But yeah, he asked me, he said, hey, did God open your eyes? Like at one point in the conversation, I said, no. I said, well, actually towards the end, he said, I needed to do this because I felt like I didn't serve God or whatever. I said, how would you feel if I told you only convinced me that your argument is worse than I thought? Yeah.
He might stop.
He did.
He might stop talking to you soon.
He said he asked if he could keep texting me and stuff. I said, yeah, it's fine.
Ask him if
he just has to understand. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Ask him if his pastor has actually commissioned everybody in the class to like reach 3 or 4 people by the end of 2019. Like, is there a quota that he has to fill?
Oh,
I bet you that's what's happening. That.
Trying to recruit to fill those empty pews.
Yeah.
Especially around here. I mean, there's a church every 7 feet. I'm sorry, you think I'm kidding? They're everywhere. I don't know how they fill them. Like, they're right across the street from each other. Like, oh well, yeah, I guess not. What was I going to say?
You should actually take.
He had another thing that kept coming back to him.
You should take a video camera someday and just go down the streets on a Sunday and just pop in your head and take your video camera and just videotape the empty pews in every church. In fact, I should do that.
How is your position not exponentially more arbitrary than the theist? Which position?
Yeah, which position?
So maybe you can explain this to me, Doug, because you know more about the details of Christianity. So I asked him if he changed churches because he's doing all this Calvinist stuff, but he goes to a Baptist church and he said they talk about it there. Does that fit? I don't know how that works.
I would say, of course it could, but I would say most Baptists are not presuppositional apologetics from my experience. So this is unique. But it is a tactic, like when Christians talk to a person who has answers to all the evidential type things, like I just had that happen to me today. It's called, they start off with shotgun apologetics. What about morality?
Okay.
What about prophecies? What about blah, what about blah? They just barf up a whole bunch of things. And then when you give very short, concise answers to each of those things, then the last straw is presuppositional apologetics. It's like, it's just impossible for this not to be true. It's by definition true. Case closed.
Yeah, and for some reason, I couldn't get through that there's a difference between an assertion and evidence.
Yes.
Because they see every assertion from the Bible as evidence for some reason. It makes me wonder what he's following, and I don't know if there's people asking questions. I guess there's some. Tom's asking if could I be wrong? Yeah, I could always be wrong about almost everything.
I'm curious to know what my position is.
I am an atheist still for govern. Yeah, but I'm not sure what position. There's lots of atheists with different positions.
Still for for GVN. What's an atheist?
Yeah, maybe we should have them clarify that.
I've never heard that term before. Atheist? What is that?
It's for losers.
Yeah, for
I'm also suppressing.
See, that's where I wait for them to say that word, suppressing. So if you're one of the fortunate unbelievers, atheists in the world who gets to talk to a presuppositional apologist, wait for them to use that word suppression. And as soon as they do, it's Christmas. Because what you...
Okay. I don't think I handled that well, because it just feels so disingenuous and silly to me.
No, they're giving you a gift. I've talked to Cy about this, and he admits that this is the... when they use the word suppressing, they've given you a gift, and you take that gift and you unwrap it and you say, how do I stop suppressing?
Yeah.
And then
whatever
answer they give, then you dive deep into their worldview and you say, but can I do that?
Okay, yeah, I did that and without asking that as much. But that's when he kept switching back and going, well, I'm going between Calvinist ideas and Arminian ideas on that. Like, he couldn't answer it. So when he said he couldn't answer that, and he said, there's a lot of things I'm still learning about Scripture. And then, of course, I said, okay, so how are you 100% confident that you're right about your God? And then it came back to, well, it's been revealed to me in a way I can be certain that he exists. I just don't know exactly how he exists. I said, okay, well, still, then you shouldn't be 100% confident, right? But
I've sometimes been facetious and said things. I haven't done this often, but when I'm feeling a little punchy, I'll say, well, God has revealed to me in a way that I can be certain that I'm not one of his elect. So you might as well go, because there's no way you can convert me, because it's not going to happen, because God hasn't regenerated me and never will, because he's revealed to me in a way that I can be certain that I never will be. And it's like, what do they say at that point? Because, well, no, God didn't do that. Well, how do you know he did it for you, that you can be certain that you are? How dare you say, I can't be certain that I'm not?
Right.
It's all just a rhetorical, philosophical...
I know. And I tried the mirror thing for a little, just using his own arguments for a different, theistic position. And every time he said, no, that's arbitrary. That was his word. Every time. What you're doing is arbitrary because that religion's not true. Mine is true. All the other ones are not. So talking about them at all is arbitrary.
Guitar Dog is asking, is presupposition same as predestination? Presuppositional apologetics is a defense of Christianity that basically assumes, it presupposes that it's true to begin with, that any other worldview is absurd and impossible. And so therefore Christianity is the only worldview, only, that leads to truth, is true. And just to use evidence to justify your position in Christianity is to put God on trial, to put Jesus on trial, which is a sin. If you talk, I'm not straw man in here, you can talk to any presuppositionalist and ask if what I said is incorrect, and I think most of them will say, yeah, Doug's pretty close. That's our position.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit tricky trying to pin him down on, because I asked him about, I said, if God just chooses, then why are you talking to me? And his thing was, well, we're supposed to. I said, well, why? If that's what you believe, well, and it just comes down to, honestly, it just comes back to, because the book says I should do that.
Did you ask him how long he's been a precept?
No. I feel like it's new. I feel like it's new because he didn't try to camouflage it in any way. It was literally one after the other. So, and he was just, I guess, how do you respond to when they say you're just borrowing from my worldview? I can tell you what I did, but I want to know what you do.
Oh, I'll tell you what I do. Let me bring it up.
Yeah. Sorry for the arousal I caused in Doug's voice right there, everyone. You don't want to hear this that side of him.
Okay. Sorry, hang on. There we go. So basically, this is Cy Ten Bruggencate. I took what he said one time, long time ago, years ago now. And one of his, Cy, if you're listening, hi. Cy will often ask Chet, how do you justify the laws of logic? And Cy says, well, I justify the laws of logic because it reflects the thinking of God. God is universal, is not made of matter. He does not change. Logic is universal, not made of matter, and does not change. Logic reflects the thinking of God. That's how I, Cy, justify the laws of logic. And I'm asking you, Chet, how do you justify the laws of logic without God? And Chet says, the laws of logic reflect the properties of the universe. The universe is universal. The universe is made of matter, and the constants of the universe do not change. Logic is universal. Logic is a property of the existence of matter, and logic does not change. Logic reflects the property of the universe. That's how I justify the laws of logic. And I'm asking you, Cy, how you justify the laws of logic without borrowing from Chet's worldview.
You have that written down?
I have that written down, yeah. In fact,
you send that to me?
I should make it public for everyone, and you can. Again, this is a rhetorical device, and it just shows how this is just playing with words. Like this, these guys don't believe this stuff for these reasons. They believe it because they had a personal experience, or that they're just terrified of hell, and they desire heaven. Now, the evidentialists, I actually have a little more respect for because they're actually trying to say, hey, is this actually true or not? Let's figure it out. But the presuppositionalists are just,
Well, I have to. So, you look for signs for people when you talk to them to try and figure out where they're sourcing things from, so on. And so he said to me at some point in the conversation, I don't remember exactly why, but he said, did you hear about the fact that Darwin's theory of evolution is on the fringes and about to be thrown out? He said there was some big conference or something. And immediately I was like, who's saying this? There's like no more established thing.
Okay.
I mean, but okay. But
you can make money here,
That
Chet.
was a big red flag of like, where is this person sourcing things?
if you're talking to a Christian and the word Darwin spews from their mouth,
Yes.
they have automatically put themselves in a certain box on the spectrum of Christianity, and that box is pretty low on the spectrum. It's like a very conservative, probably rural, Baptist, very traditional, old-time religion type mentality. Because people nowadays who accept evolution via common descent, they don't even. Darwin couldn't have never have existed, on this planet, and we would still have evolution via common descent today. So, yeah, it's. But I would make this guy a bet. Like, you could make some money off this. If he's claiming that the concept of evolution via common descent is close to being debunked, and
Yeah.
make a very strong claim of the marker of how the bet would be won or lost, bet him $1,000, have a time stamp on it, like expiration date, and then just wait to collect.
So Floyd is doing the same thing there in the chat. Logically justify logic using logic? That's circular.
No, logic's a brute fact. It's a property of the universe. Who's saying that? Floyd?
Floyd, someone in the chat?
Yeah, it's virtuous. It's virtuous circularity, Floyd. It's virtuous.
How are you defining a brute fact?
As a core presupposition.
Okay.
See, Greg Bonson said, actually, I got this written down too. I'll try to put as much as I can of this rhetorical devices in the comment section. And I want to be very clear. I'm not being insincere when I do say that the universe is my core presupposition and it has the properties it has. I'm not being fickle here. But the way, like I said with Sai, that is rhetorical device. That's sort of like just a way to put someone in their place. But I'm not being facetious. I do believe that there has to be a starting point in order for one to make sense of the world. And that starting point for a guy like me is that I don't think we live in the matrix yet. At some point have to say, here's where we start. We started with the universe's existence, and then we build up from there. And that's the same thing the precept does, except they use God.
Yeah. Yeah, and we talked about that a bit. I've outlined my presuppositions and so forth. Floyd, Christians can't account for logic either. They can make an assertion, but they can't demonstrate that it's valid. So that's fine. And we talked about that tonight too. So maybe you can help me with this. I've explained to him, I want to say over our conversations 4 or 5 times, how subjective morality works and that he does it too. But he does the guess. I'm going to let you guess. What one person in history do you think he brings up to try and refute that?
Refute subjective
morality.
Oh, Hitler?
Yep, absolutely. And he does it every time. Like I haven't heard it from him before. So he says, so he tries to say, you can't, if morality is subjective, you can't say that Hitler was wrong. And I say, no, I can, based on my subjectively chosen objective standard for morality. I can say that from and I said, actually, I said, so his case for morality is that God puts it on everyone's heart. That's what he says. That's his whole thing for where morality comes from. God just puts it on your heart. I said, you realize by mentioning Hitler, you're just hurting your case for God putting morality on everyone's heart, right? Because I think that's true. If God's but then of course, Hitler suppressed it.
Yeah.
Right. So I said, what? I said, okay. Well, your God sounds very weak. If he's able to put that on people's hearts and people can just suppress it, that's a pretty weak God. But so his whole thing was, Hitler and morality and how can that be right? How can you say? I said, well, thankfully most of the world disagreed with that and wiped that sort of morality as much to the side as they could. Obviously, it's still around.
But how can he not see that Hitler had a sort of like a religious foundation or background? Like, why?
No, I mentioned that he hated that.
Why do you think he killed the Jews? Why the Jews? Because they killed Jesus.
I know, but they don't want to believe that. But here's the funny thing. So I remember that because he did it a bunch. And then we were sort of wrapping it up at the end and sort of making amends because it did get a bit heated here and there. And I told him, I said, look, I get fired up and I say things because that's who I am. So you're going to have to deal with that sometimes if you want to talk to me. And but he said, he was talking about, but we're both like, if we saw someone hanging off of a cliff, we'd both go and help them. And I said, well, what if it's Hitler? And he said, kick him off the cliff. And I said, so your morality is subjective. And he laughed, but I hope that sticks a little bit. Because I think isn't that what he just demonstrated? Even if he was kind of joking, it feels like he made a contextual decision in that moment based on the current factors, and his morality allowed him to kick another human being off of a cliff.
Yeah.
Where if it had been someone different than Hitler, he would not have kicked them off the cliff, hypothetically. Yeah, and I got into the same stuff you do a lot. If there's no hell, what do I need Jesus for? And he swore up and down it would make me a better something or other. And I said, how can you demonstrate that? And he can't. How is it that in atheist countries people are happier? Blah, blah, blah. And it just, I don't know. I want to know all of this stuff is clinging to some sticky center, and he just won't give it up in terms of what that experience was that changed him or made him believe.
He refuses to tell you.
Yeah, it hasn't so far. I keep asking him. I said, you told me you had an experience. What was it? What exactly happened? Because I think he knows if he gets into that,
he's done.
It can be, it's trouble. So how do you, if somebody brings up Hitler to you, what are you going to say to them in terms of morality, subjective morality? What are you going to say?
I'm going to say,
because whatever I'm saying is not getting through.
Yeah, well, I'm probably what I would say wouldn't get through either, because that's not the real issue. But I would say I believe what Hitler did is wrong based on my standard. And they say, well, what? Yeah. That's just your opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. And your opinion, and where did you get that it came bad from? But they don't think. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, the thing is, I'd say my standard is, not to throw battery acid on people's faces, not to cause people unnecessary suffering, to encourage well-being. If that's a bad standard, in your opinion, well, I encourage you to change your mind. But unlike your God, my standard actually takes into account human suffering. Your God, as you admitted earlier, Joe, is that he drowns babies.
Yeah. But he doesn't. Oh, he threw the old God doesn't murder in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just judgment or
justice.
Right? Judgment or justice. Okay. Yeah. I had another thing. I've been talking a lot today, more than I do in like a week usually. So on the topic of morality, and that same person was asking, where did the universe come from? We don't know. It could very well have always existed, so it didn't need to come from anywhere. So then I asked him towards the end, we got back to morality again, and while we're on it, I'll continue with that. So I asked him how he determined that his God was good. What standard did he use to determine that his God was good? And the standard that he used was, of course, the Bible says it's good. So it's good. I said, so you had no standard. You didn't look at qualities and do an analysis based on any standard of I said, someone who kills millions of babies down here, not good. Someone who saves millions of babies, good up here. What's the middle point for you? What's the standard? And he said, I don't have one other than the Bible is the standard. I said, so you just take in the information. You don't think about it at all or analyze it. You just take it in and then repeat it. Is that what you're saying? And he said, yes. And that freaks me out.
Sorry, I'm listening to you and reading the chat at the same time, and it's really difficult. And S.J. Thompson, I'm going to say this as gently as possible. S.J. Thomason, I don't mind being mocked. I really don't. And you know why? Because I'm a 48-year-old male who's mature and secure in who he is.
If if I got bothered by being mocked, I'd be the biggest hypocrite on the planet Earth.
When someone tells me that it hurts their feelings that they're mocked, especially when you're like, I can sort of understand when you're a teenager and junior high, but like, put that behind you, SJ. You're a grown woman. Please, you're a grown woman. You should be able to handle if someone thinks if someone calls you stupid, just let it go.
Well, I know. To be fair, though, I think to SJ, I think what she's saying is that specific experience that is so tied to them emotionally. It's
that's the problem.
Them literally, it's the most important experience in their life. To have that be mocked can be harder to disregard than your hairstyle or your shirt you're wearing, or you know what I mean, some other idea on something. Yeah, I think that's more of what she's getting at.
Yeah, Christianity is, out of all the religions, it's one of the highest ones that is welded to one's identity. And this is why Christianity is so terrible. It's because you are nothing. I won't say this is every Christian's view, but a lot of Christians, you are absolutely nothing. You're dirt. You're garbage. You're filth. If without God, without the Holy Spirit in you, without Christ saving you and redeeming you, and all these things. And so when someone takes on that identity, and if you introduce doubt, if I introduce doubt to SJ that maybe what you believe is not true, it's just, or if I say anything that is resembling any type of ridicule, it's like you're physically slapping her in the face. If you slap Jesus in the face, you're slapping me in the face, Doug. And I totally get that. But it's that whole idea of you can choose to be offended or not, SJ. You can choose to be mocked, to feel mocked or not. Do you realize, SJ, how many times you disagree with that?
Wait, I think I might. You're saying we choose our emotions?
No, we choose how we deal with it. So
okay. She might feel mocked, but she doesn't need to let that fester or come out in some other. Like you can go, oh, I'm feeling that, but it's not really justified. Like you're doing the fast and slow brain,
right?
Essentially.
For example, if someone right now, if I say something that offends a Christian, and they actually make the decision to type it on their keyboard and make a response to it, that's at least a little bit of level 2 back of the brain thinking going on. You can do that, of course, but you can also just choose to not be offended. Now, you can't. I agree with you. You can't control your instant reactions, emotional reactions. But maybe I'm just dead inside, and I don't have those emotions. Well, I was
just going to say, and she's responded to you. Maybe you want to read what she said.
Doug, I worked in FLA selling furniture and real estate for decades. I have a very thick skin. I'm talking about my religious, spiritual experiences. Those aren't open for mocking. SJ, yes, they are. Your spiritual, religious experiences are open to anyone. If you believe in free speech, they are open to be mocked. Now, the question is, how are you going to handle that?
Yeah. So I guess when I'm on here, which isn't very often, but I have to stand up for the people with emotions because you don't get them a lot of the time. And that's why I don't. But honestly, I can understand what SJ is saying in some ways, because that's why I don't do this that much. And while I'll do it offline in person with people that want to talk to me, because I do really like talking about it, but not so much with the internet trolls and all that stuff. Because I have to. I'm emotional first and logical second, generally. And so I have to wait for that wave of emotion to stop before I can deal with it. And I don't think you work that way.
No.
What I've known from you. And if you have that emotion, it's not nearly as intense as some other people. So yes, to all you emotional people who try to get to logic through the anger or the fear or the sadness, I'm with you. I'm here to support you.
People have
So,
tried to ruffle my feathers and get underneath my
oh
skin.
yeah,
And I'm not saying I'm like completely 100%.
I've tried.
Yeah, you tried. Uh, and I'm not saying I'm 100%. What was Spock? He was what was the name of the planet he was from? I'm not from that
What?
planet, but I'm pretty
What?
close. Like, for example, just the other
Uh,
day, some Christian internet troll was trying to get me to debate him, and my technique to dealing with people who mock in quotes me is I just agree with them. Doug, you're scared. You're scared to debate me in X, Y, and Z, and I say, yeah, you're probably right. I know way more than you. Blah blah blah. Yeah, you're probably right. Just
oh, speaking of this mocking thing, he also brought up how the Christians have been under attack for thousands of years. And I immediately said, I said, "Oh, you and your victim complex." It just fell out of me. I couldn't stop it. I just said it. And he goes, I said, "You guys, you're the majority religion, not only in this country, but globally. You have so much power, it's ridiculous. But here you are saying somebody questioned you about something, so therefore you're being attacked. Stop being a victim." I'm done with that. I'm very much done with that idea. You know,
you know, when I was a Christian, I think it was in a Bible study I was in. I prayed for persecution, and everybody looked at me funny. And then afterwards, they asked me, Doug, why did you pray like that? And I said, because persecution has been proven to show that's what strengthens the church. So if you're a Christian listening to this, and you're complaining about persecution, stop it. If Christianity is true, you want persecution. That's the best thing for the Christian church. It's what keeps people together.
so let me ask you, when he invited me to church, should I have gone? Should I have said yes? What do you think?
For you, answering from your perspective,
As me, you know me.
no, that would have been a bad idea because I don't know if you could have whispered
Okay.
your swear words there.
Oh, I have restrained my swear words in a church before. I broke my ankle in a church gym real bad and didn't swear once. So I think I can do it.
Christians who know me don't want me to go to church. They don't want me hanging out in that foyer before and after the service.
No?
My wife does not want me to go to her church.
If you were going to go to a church, just say you just want to check it out again, what denomination would you choose to go to? For like a full Sunday service, which one would you go to?
That's like asking, like, do I want to eat cow testicles or?
Well, you can answer that question too, but I'd like, I just wonder, yeah.
Maybe like one of those seeker-sensitive services where it's not really a church, but it's more or less feel good professional music, where it's not like some pimple-faced, glass-wearing with the tape in the middle trying to sing a song out of tune. Like I would want like a professional production that maybe has a tinge of a Christian theme, you know, that most real Christians would just spit in the face of. Something like that. I couldn't even go to a universalist type church because I think, like, come on, guys, at least not everybody's right here. You know, they just all believe what they want to believe. Like a church that, not like a Joel Osteen church. Well, see, Joel Osteen has actually high quality music.
Good production value.
Yeah, it's good production value, but the actual message, I would just be barfing and just screaming, "Can't you people see he's just stealing your money? Like you're basically paying him to make you feel good." That's nothing. It'd have to be free. I don't know, no expectations that I have to pay money.
Oh, are there churches like that?
Oh yeah.
I don't. The only churches I really went to growing up were Catholic churches, which always had the handout for various things.
The really smart,
So,
the
like,
really smart churches,
some Lutheran stuff, yeah.
the really smart churches, they do reverse psychology. They'll put the offering box in the corners of the church building, and then the pastor will say something like, if you're a guest here, please feel no need to contribute, give anything. But just to let you know, we're not the type of church who sticks an offering plate underneath your nose and it goes around the whole church. We have boxes in the corners of the church, like trying to make it look how we really don't care about money, but really there they are in the corners of the church. It's quite a brilliant psychological technique.
And Osteen is a false teacher. We hear that every time he's brought up. I would agree with you. Full stop. So
my most viewed video was on Osteen, and I tell you, look at the downvotes on that.
Yeah, I think I encouraged you to do that. I feel like.
Oh, you're taking credit for that?
Credit. I'm gonna take some credit on that one.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think there's maybe not. I don't know. I encourage you to do a lot of things you never do, probably for your own benefit. But when we were talking about persecution, David Friskin, I think was the name in the chat, he said persecution was a part of his indoctrination as a child. How does that work? I don't know how that would work. Does that familiar to you?
Well, he can tell us himself.
Maybe he can comment again,
but
yeah.
My guess is it has to do with the whole us versus them theology. There's those who walk in the light and those who walk in the darkness. There's those who are under the power of God and the Holy Spirit, and those are the power under Satan. And this is biblical. If technically you and I, Chet, if Christianity is true, we are under the rule of the evil one. So if you're a Christian, you want to be careful around guys like us, because we could lead them astray, because we have some demonic powers once in a while.
Oh, I hope so. So this is part of this is reminding me of another thing he said. He was talking about good or evil. I used evil. I entered his worldview and talked about something from his worldview, and I used the word evil. And then he asked if I believe in evil. And, I don't think I really do. I think that's something I'm still sort of figuring out. So, yeah, it depends on, so here's what I said, and then maybe you can help me through it. I said, if you're talking about demons and spirits and a battle between angels and demons and spiritual warfare going on, no, I don't believe in that sort of evil. But if you're just talking about people doing bad things, maybe that's just a bad thing. But then I flash back to like when I was a Buddhist, and they're like, good and evil are just mental constructions that don't really exist. It's just an interpretation of an ever-evolving reality. Like, to believe in good and evil is too much. So I'm still, that's something maybe you can help me. How would you talk to a Christian about good and evil?
I would say giving a child broccoli is good, because it has a lot of nutrients. It's healthy. Might not taste good, but
even if they hate it, I hated broccoli. It was a punishment for me as a kid to get broccoli. I like the mashed potatoes.
That's why I say unnecessary suffering versus necessary suffering. Like even though it doesn't taste good, like it's healthy for you. It's for your well-being. Now, throwing battery acid on a child's face, I would call evil, because it doesn't promote their well-being. I can't think of any way it would. Now, if someone is necessarily defining good and evil as compared to the standard of their God, then I would boldly and proudly say, no, I don't believe in that goodness and evil. I'm not ashamed to say I don't believe in sin, because in order to believe in sin, you have to believe there's a deity of some sort, by definition. So you basically say you define good and evil based on your standard. And then and as soon as they say, well, your standard is just your opinion, you say, well, your standard is just Yahweh's opinion. What do you mean just Yahweh's opinion? He's the creator.
But so I guess there can be a differentiation between moral, immoral, good, and evil, like depending on how you're thinking of those things, right? But I think I only really think in terms of moral and immoral. I don't really think about good or evil so much because I associate those things with, like some sort of forces that have been made up.
Yeah, there's a connotation that the word evil has that in it, and it's mostly because of cultural how we in the United States movies. When you think of evil, you think of demons and scary stuff. And
Kevin Martin. I guess we got Joe Rogan's alt account of Kevin Martin telling us to take DMT and come back and discuss our ideas and beliefs. Hey Joe, welcome to the show. That's cool and all, but have you tried DMT?
Chris, objective evil is absurd. No, I never said it was absurd. If your God is real and true and right, then objective evil is what goes against his nature. But I don't believe that your God exists. I don't believe those definitions of sin, evil apply. But
right,
I would never say that there's no evil. It's based on my standard of morality.
So I guess the question I'm really left with, I don't know how long we've been talking for now, but
I got the house to myself for a long time.
Like, yeah, but that doesn't mean I want to talk to you for that long.
You can leave right now if you want.
I know.
I don't need you, Chet.
I know. I'm aware. I know. So
you see what I just did? I insulted Chet, and look how he handled it. He just brushed it off. And
yeah, but you're
gonna cry later
when I get out there. So, I guess oftentimes we've had, mostly you, obviously, and back in Blab and stuff, we had conversations with similar precepts and such. And usually the conversation isn't for the person you're talking to. It's for somebody in the audience.
Right.
So, but this is all offline and private, and we're so far apart on even our understanding of how basic things in the world work.
Like, I know where you're going with this.
Okay, go. Yeah, I don't know if it's worth it. Because it's tiring. It's tiring to be just asserted at and ask for some validity to a claim and never get it.
I hear your question. I feel your pain. Well,
okay,
not really, but
help me.
You look.
I know. You fake it really well.
Yeah, I fake it really well. Don't tell my wife.
She knows. She knows.
That's a joke. My wife doesn't watch these videos, but you look into Joe, the presuppositional apologist guy named Joe. You look into his eyes and say, "Look, Joe, if you're not going to be honest with me and tell me about your personal experiences, what really compelled you, what really was the first cause, what really led you to Christ, if you are not willing to share the most important thing in your life with me, why should I talk to you any further? If you're so terrified that I'm going to mock you or that I will somehow poke holes in what you find so deeply valuable and important, then maybe you're not ready to talk to me, Joe. Maybe you should just stay away from me if you're not ready."
That's strong. I like it. It's frustrating to make a valid argument you can support with evidence and have it just be told you're dumb because his book says something different. Like, I'm not getting the big Applebee's money that you are to do this,
Yeah. I'm making tens and tens of dollars.
I know. So for me, it's just because I do it because it may not seem like it, but I care about people. And part of the reason I'm hard on people is because it's hard for me I invest and I care about people, and I can't do that too much because it just drains it all out of me. I wouldn't talk to him for 3 hours with him repeating the same stuff if I didn't care or want to try and have some sort of rapport.
But what I just said, he'll understand, like, because you're speaking the truth.
Okay.
If if the core reason that he believes is not because he believes any other worldview is absurd and that this is the only right presupposition possible and there's no way he can be wrong, it could be true that that's why he believes, but we both know that's probably not the reason.
It's certainly in the extreme minority of the hundreds of people we've come across over the last few years.
Odds are he just picked up on this apologetic in the last year or so, and he's found it maybe as an effective rhetorical tool. And so if he's not willing to, because these are deep issues, right? Whether God exists, whether there's heaven and hell, all these things. These are real deep human issues. And if he's not willing to be honest with you and tell you what really impacted him and why, then why have the conversation? If he wants to hide behind a facade of apologetics and not be one human to another and just laying it out on the line, then and I think that will resonate with him.
Okay. It's, he asked me in our first conversation, hey, if it was proven to you that Christianity was true, would you be a Christian? And I said, yeah. And he seems to just be feeding on that. Like, he keeps saying, I have the truth. I have the truth. Yes, I have the truth. I say, well, okay, what is it? Well, the scripture. And I go, oh, jeez, man, come on. He goes, and he gave me it's all verified. It's all been verified. There's so much research that proves that everything in the Bible is true. Like, that's an area I just avoid, because for one, I know minimal things about the Bible, because why would I? Like, I know kind of what I need to know. I know the first claim for sure.
Let me get a Bible verse for you that you can use to tell them what you would need to believe in, because I think this is true. Someone help me out. The water on the wood, Baal versus Yahweh. Is it 1 Kings 18? 2 Kings 18? I can find it to you later. Oh, what did I do? Hang on. So basically, it's something that you can say, I need something for today. I can't believe based on 2,000-year-old texts.
Okay.
So if you have someone in your life that doesn't have a limb or is paralyzed all their life, something like that, say, look, my confidence in God
unfortunately, I don't, Doug. I wish I had a crippled or disabled person to rely on for this. But unfortunately, we can't all be as lucky as you, Doug.
Yeah. Christians hate that when I bring up my sister. I think they really do.
I know. I'm sorry. I interrupted you. So you need something present day.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you say, come with me to this hospital. We'll find someone, and we're not talking about back pain or blah, blah, blah. Someone who was in a car accident and their eyeball was crushed. Like, pray for them in the name of Jesus that Jesus will uncrush that eyeball. Like, something like that. Then your confidence will go up in their God. It has to be in Jesus' name, not Vishu's name or Allah's name. And I tell you, this, and they can't say, well, you can't expect that, Doug. You can't test God. This is how it was done in 2 Kings 18 or wherever it is. This is how they showed who was the top God back then. Why is it good for them but not today? 1 Kings 18:19. Thank you, Darkin.
So somebody mentioned and in the chat about it's good to know the Bible because it gives you credibility or whatever. But I learned. I mean, I know about it. I've learned about it. I know just through Doug and that. But I mean, I knew more about Buddhism than anything else because I was a devout Buddhist for several years. So I really studied that one. And then it's sort of like when people say you should learn the Bible, I feel like, okay, if you go learn about the mating habits of centaurs and report back to me, I will go learn about the Bible because they're equally important. So that's what it feels like when somebody says you should study and learn the Bible.
Like that even
that's how
hurt
I feel
me.
about it. Well, I know you. Well, I make fun of you and Cam for being Bible nerds
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
think it's a waste of time. But I feel like, and I think you might disagree with me, but I feel like it's more true to my position of atheism to not invest in the Bible or spend time on it if I think it's hogwash and worthless to me, which is how I feel about it.
Okay, I disagree with you.
Okay.
I think the book of Mark, the Gospel of Mark, is one of the most brilliant works of literature on this planet.
Okay. So if you're enjoying it okay, I can see that perspective. If you're enjoying it from the perspective of nice writing and literature, okay. If you're looking for it in terms of how to live your life, I would say that is not staying with your tradition. But again, this is your hobby. Like you
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah.
Maybe beyond like you really like it. So if this is your hobby, that's great. But I feel like treating holy books, the so-called holy books, with respect is only reinforcing the idea that they're respectable.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't think we need to do that.
Yeah. I actually think you respect the Bible more when you take the supernatural out of it. Like you can see it for the literary devices that it uses and the foreshadowing, the mimesis, all these things. This is why Cam and I like studying the Bible. And Christians who knock on my door, it doesn't happen often, who find out I'm an atheist and then find out a few sentences later that I read the Bible almost every day, they don't know what to do with that. It's like, I know the Bible better than them. And they kind of like, what?
Do you go old and new, or do you?
Oh, yeah.
Are you go in order, or you just open it randomly? I know you've gone through them sequentially in your life, probably numerous times, but like, what's your Bible reading program? Do you like, yeah.
I pray, and then wherever the Holy Spirit leads, I go. No, that's the old Doug. It's more topical. So if I know I'll be talking to a certain Christian of a certain type, I'll refresh certain things. I do think Mark, the Gospel of Mark, is amazing and is basically the root of all the Gospels. And Paul is interesting to me. The Old Testament is fun to read, like especially Genesis, because it's myth, and and some of it's really funny. You know, people having their testicles crushed and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's always good. So somebody asked. I have another question for you too. I'll try to remember it. But somebody asked if I'm a strong atheist. Do they mean that I say no God exists? Is that what a strong atheist?
It's if you can beat me in an arm wrestle, because I'm a farm kid.
Eric Lascano asks. Is that Eric? Can you just tell me exactly what you mean? I'll tell you.
Yeah,
if I fit it or not.
Do you make a positive affirmation that a God doesn't exist?
Oh no, I don't do that. I think it's possible. I just don't know. I would be the same like Doug. You call me an agnostic atheist. I don't know where our degrees are, but in terms of thinking of what would, I'm sorry, getting tired. In terms of, I don't know what degrees of belief we would say, like impossibility. So, but it's extremely low to me that any God exists at all. So
I'm pretty,
but there's no way for me to know either way.
I'm pretty much a hard atheist when it comes to Abrahamic religions. So I'm willing to defend the position that Abrahamic God does not exist. Now, I will still say I could be wrong.
Yeah, right.
And I've changed on this.
Okay.
Chet, you like when I change, right? When I grow as a person, you appreciate that about me. 3 or 4 years ago, I probably would not have said that. But I've realized that I need to have some backbone and be willing to take some burden. And so I'm willing to tell people why I think this God does not exist. Here's my reasons. Here's my evidence. And yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and I hope Eric, I hope I answered you, but yeah, I don't believe in any gods at this time. And really, the biggest thing that got me there was a concept in Buddhism, of all things, the concept of sunyata, or emptiness. So sitting with that, pondering that, and long periods of meditation So it wasn't. That's really what it was. Just seeing reality in that way really made it difficult for me to believe in the possibility of some sort of supernatural or everlasting, eternal thing beyond energy. So yeah. So Doug, I guess I don't know that I've ever asked you before, but have you read other so-called holy books,
A little bit of
like
Book of
even
Mormon, a
something
little
short,
bit.
like the Tao Te Ching or anything like that?
No, I haven't touched Eastern religions that much, but a little bit of Book of Mormon, a little bit of
Mhm.
Islam, a lot of Judaism, of course, because that's part of Christianity.
You say Islam like the Quran or
Yeah,
Hadith stuff,
yeah.
or
But one thing I
some?
realized about the Quran is the translations can be so different. Oh my goodness, it's true in Christianity and Judaism as well, but it's even more so, I think, in Islam.
Hmm. So, I guess I'm wondering if you think you should,
No, I have no
like,
need. I give the same answer I give to people who say, "Why don't you go to church?"
okay,
I have no need. I
uh-huh,
have no desire.
yeah, but okay, I'm trying to, like, you enjoy the literature of, like you said, in the Bible, so maybe you would enjoy the Tao, or maybe you'd like to learn the Heart Sutra in
I just had this
Buddhism,
conversation
or
last night with Cam.
I mean, like the Heart Sutra is beautiful. It's very short, but then you can learn about what it really implies and means and stuff like that. Like if you're just from a
I have my
spiritual
cheesecake.
literature type of thing. Okay.
Chet, I have my cheesecake in my life. I have the things that like, and you're trying to tempt me with other cakes. I don't need. I don't need.
Okay.
I don't need other cakes at my age.
So yeah, but you're saying you can have too many cakes? So, come on, man. Live a little. This depends on what kind of cakes they are.
Uh, do you want to, hey, Adam? I have it here. I have your answers.
Yeah, we can, if people have questions or they want to talk, that's good with me at this point, Doug. I think you've helped me some. I just needed to kind of make sure that I felt confident in what I was saying, but it's like you get gaslighted talking to precepts, because you say something perfectly logical and sound and they act like it's insane. So you start doubting. You're like, what is happening, and why is this not why why is this happening? So yeah, I have to, like, come back around to people who've been through it more times than me. And
You know,
but I really hope if you can do like the few things that you mentioned, or put them somewhere, or drop them in our Dropbox or something.
yeah, I already put
I'd
it in.
like that.
I already put in the my equivalent to size argument for how do you justify logic in the chat, and I also put in a great quote from Greg Bonson, who basically admits that, hey, the presuppositional Christian is going to basically say, this is my ultimate authority, but so will the non-believer. They'll have their ultimate authority, which is their presuppositions, which is, in my case, the universe exists and has the properties it has. And so it's a stalemate at that point. You have your presupposition, I have mine. I think my presupposition is more, properly basic than yours. You've had to insert all
Right.
these things. So, yeah.
Great. So okay, well, maybe, are you doing something in the chat? I don't want to interrupt if you were taking a question or something.
Yeah, I have something queued up to go that might be interesting. It's
Okay.
Adam does
Okay.
SE did
Oh
a
yeah,
quiz. So
I remember Adam. Yeah. Can I ask you one other question though,
yeah.
real quick before that?
I'm an open
Yeah,
book.
just hang on, Adam. So anyway, so anyways, a long time ago, we were talking, Cam, you and me and somebody else. We were talking, and we were talking about that presuppositions should be properly basic and simple,
Mm-hmm.
and essentially axiomatic, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's true. And the idea of saying God first simply doesn't meet that criteria of being simple and axiomatic. So it's really not a good presupposition. Now, that was the position that was a long time ago. But do you think is that still hold true? Is there any weight to that? I don't know if you've discussed that or gone through that anymore in terms of, yeah, okay.
Like you get 1 billion people at random on this planet, and simple basic things like, here's all the billion people have a pen. Okay, we're going to let go on the count of 3, and out of the billion people, the pen falls. That's a pretty good, properly basic experience that shows that the universe has the property, what we call gravity, of things falling to the ground. Now try that with religion. Get 1 billion people, religious people, and make any claim you want and see if you get the same answer. It's not properly basic.
Yeah.
Your God presupposition is bad.
I couldn't account for why the pen would fall, by the way, during our conversation. So therefore it was invalid and irrelevant.
You count for it the same way he does.
I know. I'm not saying I disagreed with it. I'm saying he did. So, okay. Thank you for your patience, Adam. And what did you have?
Okay, so Adam asked 11 tough questions, he called them, by a street epistemologist. You know what a street epistemologist is? It's those evil people who try to lead Christians to hell.
Yeah, they're usually so full of themselves, like really condescending, and like they ask questions that make you uncomfortable.
What's the word? They're insincere, I find.
Oh, wait, no, it wasn't insincere. No, it was disingenuous.
Disingenuous, yes.
Disingenuous.
Yes.
Inside joke for those. I called Doug disingenuous 2.5 years ago.
No, it's probably 4 years ago now.
Oh, maybe that long ago when he was first really getting into this. I don't remember why.
Yeah, you mocked me.
Oh, I know why. Oh, I do know why. And I did mock Doug and other street epistemologists early on when it was before, like, it's gotten way bigger since then. This was sort of early on. But the reason being is that they tried to, the early phases of SC, people were like, I don't have an agenda. I'm just asking questions. I don't want you to do anything specific. And I said, you're all full of shit. And a lot of them didn't like that, including Doug. I said, it's disingenuous because you would like them to think like you, I think. And you do have an agenda. And that's where the doubt is a virtue actually came from, was that discussion. We said, what is your agenda? What are you preaching? So your agenda is doubt. So I think that was helpful in that way. But yeah, early on,
and I did
people
change.
doing SC were, yeah. You're welcome. So early on, there was a lot of that. And if you're looking at doing SE or into that, be honest, you do have an agenda. There are things you would like to see come from that conversation. Don't pretend that you're just totally neutral, because nobody is, and it won't help the session go well. So, anyways, sidetrack. So again, we interrupted Adam's 11 question.
I have no problem telling Chris in the chat right now that I believe he's wrong, and very wrong, and probably hasn't even begun to study the liberal scholarship that he thinks is from the pits of hell. But all
right, let's do the Adams thing.
Should I? What's the best way to do this? What are the 11 questions? I'm going to do a smart selection.
So you can find a way to remove me.
I'm going to cover both of us up.
Okay.
11 tough questions. I read them really quickly a week ago. If it's the case that heaven and hell are the only two options in the end, and someone desires neither, do they still ultimately have free will? Oh, good question. S.J. Thompson answers, what is your preferable alternative to heaven and hell? Well, my answer to that would be, if your God's real, how about poofing us out of existence if we don't want to go to heaven or hell? There's a good option. It's very simple. Some person named TJ says, that's like asking if you give someone the option of either eating a burger or pizza and they don't want to eat either of them, do they still have free will? If you gave someone the choice of eating one thing or another, neither of which they liked, it would magically remove their free will. Eventually, hunger will make the choice final for them, just as death will make our choice between heaven and hell. That answer makes me kind of throw up in my mouth a little bit.
What is this from again, Doug? Where were these questions asked?
These are questions asked by Adam, who's a famous Twitter guy.
Like, I know who Adam is, but I mean, was it in writing, or was in over video chat and then somebody transcribed it?
I think it was
Or
through
I'm just
Twitter.
curious. Through Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Adam just smiled when I called him famous. You're welcome, Adam. You know that whole thing that God, that whole line, God would never send someone to hell. That's so bogus. And here's why. Imagine two boxes, a red box and a black box. No, let's go red and white. A white box and a red box. Now, Chet, you're in control of that white box.
Okay.
Complete control. You get the final say. What happens? Who enters that white box? It's a big box.
As you say, okay, yeah, it's large. Like you can walk into it.
Yeah, it's a big, big white box.
Okay.
You have final say, final authority. What goes into that box? I want to go in that white box, but there's only two choices. You either go in the white box or the red box. Now, if those are the only two choices, and you're the only arbiter of going into the white box, and if you said no, Doug, you cannot enter the white box.
Mm-hmm.
You have essentially sent me to the red box because there's no other choice.
Okay. I think that sounds right.
Isn't that reasonable? Christians, isn't that reasonable? So your God does send people to hell every time he judges them not being allowed into heaven if there's only two choices. And this is precisely why Adam asked this question, because you are not free to choose anything other than the way Yahweh has set it up, heaven and hell.
Hey, Doug, is purgatory a thing in the Bible?
Yeah, there's a reference to baptism for the dead, and I think that's sort of kind of maybe how the Catholics have come up with this idea, but it's really an idea that heaven and hell is not really fair to, let's say, babies and maybe vegetables and other people, and so that's maybe why they came up with that concept. I'm not too big on the theology of Catholics, but let's see, question number 2. Why take a position on abortion if it could be Jesus' will in the same way it was Jesus' will in Noah's flood to drown toddlers, babies, and the unborn? So,
wait, I'm not seeing this on the YouTube.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you for keeping me accountable here.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the purpose of this question is that the Christian shouldn't be so quick to say a certain action is wrong because God may have sanctioned it.
Doug, scroll it back up just a little because the question's off screen. I'd like to reread it. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Okay.
You can probably read it better on YouTube, but...
Well, that's what I'm looking at YouTube, actually.
Oh, you are?
So, okay. I don't know if... Anyways, it's okay now.
So, yeah, if I'm trying to figure out why Adam asked that question, it's because you take any action X, and if a person says, oh, that action's evil, and if they're a Christian and they say that, but if they knew the mind of God and God actually sanctioned that exact same action, it now goes from evil to good. In other words, it was never evil to begin with. It's a good action. So a Christian can never really say that action X is wrong unless they fully know the mind of God. Because even in the Old Testament, it was perfectly okay for the Israelites to stone the practicing homosexual. But today they'd probably say, no, it's not okay because that was Mosaic law and now we are under new law, a new covenant. Mm-hmm. So, but what if we go back to the old covenant or old culture, or if a government decides that stoning homosexuals is punishable by death, on what standard, on what reasoning could the Christian say that is wrong? Especially when there's precedent of Yahweh himself doing the exact same thing. So let's look at some of these answers here. As the creator of all creation, whose purpose is for us to build our spirits to become more like Jesus, God has sovereignty over what occurs within his creation. He is the giver of life and the one who ends our lives on earth once we've fulfilled our purposes. SJ's almost sounding like she's saying that, if God wants to kill a baby in the womb, that's his prerogative.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common answer.
Yeah, TJ says that's like asking why take a position on murder if it could be Jesus' will in the same way it was Jesus in Noah's time to drown people. Murder involves the killing of human beings by one another, by another, not God killing a human being. Murder is the unlawful killing. And by most societies' definition of murder, it's humans decide when it's unlawful or not. Not God.
And these are all Christians of the same ilk that are answering, or do we know?
I don't know if they're all
Okay.
from the same ilk. I don't read any.
All right. I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah. Okay.
I won't read any answers more than 5 lines.
Okay.
Oh, well, maybe I will. I have 2 answers to this. My simple one is the church has stood against abortion and infanticide for over 1,700 years. You sure about that, J.J. Richards? Do you know why there's circumcision, J.J. Richards? Some people think it's because it was a way to get rid of child sacrifice in the Old Testament. Because people started saying, this is not good. Like, Yahweh, he doesn't want us to sacrifice our firstborn, so let's just cut off a piece of our penis instead.
And I'm still mad at those people. Just, I don't know. That's a tough one. Would you rather have had children sacrificed way back when or be circumcised today? Dilemma. So go.
How can an all good deity be all good if sin is a byproduct of his creation? Adam, excellent question. Because every Christian, I make very few claims, but here's a claim that I'm proudly, willing, and boldly to pronounce. All Christians believe, every single one, every single Christian on this planet believes that if God did not create anything, there would be no sin. So how can an all good deity be all good if sin is a byproduct of his creation? That's a great question. SJ says evil has a purpose. Ooh, as it helps to develop our empathy, perseverance, and commitment to love.
Oh, evil is love, war is peace, slavery is freedom.
It almost sounds like SJ saying, if evil has a purpose to develop empathy, well, developing empathy is good. Developing perseverance is good. Developing commitment to love is good. So is evil good? Because it's helping to develop those things? However, I do not, J.J. Richards, I do not know that love cannot exist without free will. And I think that every man knows that love is the ultimate. Okay, this is the Sunday school answer that J.J. Richards is giving. I don't even know who these people are. This guy could be this guy could be a pastor of a mega church for all I know, but he's using Sunday school, like elementary school, Sunday school apologetics. The issue that Adam is getting at here is that the free will of man is irrelevant. It's totally irrelevant. Can I say that one more time? The free will of man is irrelevant because if this all good deity had the free will himself to decide whether or not to create and still chose to create knowing that there would be sin as a byproduct, what kind of deity is that? It's a deity that said, I know if I create, there's going to be sin and evil, and you know what? I'm okay with it. Bring it on.
Yeah, I don't know that's why I asked earlier too. I don't know who these people are. And I got stuck on your irrelevant thing because I was like, oh, it's funny. The more times you say irrelevant, the more irrelevant it gets. I don't know. That's just where I went. So I got distracted. But yeah, I'd be interested in who these people are. Maybe they'll see this.
By the way, are we still on? Has YouTube taken me off the air yet?
I don't know.
What is the best way to demonstrate to oneself they are open to being wrong about a religious belief held as deeply as yours? Oh, great question. SJ answers, ask them to explain their beliefs and how they came to them. What?
Okay.
But the question was for you, SJ. What's the best way for you to demonstrate to yourself? What? Hang on.
Oh. Yeah, I don't think she understood that one.
Yeah, I'm right.
She misread it. She probably, I think she just misread it. To be fair, I think I did too. Initially, yeah.
So what Adam's asking SJ here is, if you were wrong, what would be the best way to figure that out? So she misunderstood the question. I think, let's see what TJ says. In other words, what is the best way to make me think I could be wrong about my religious views, my religious beliefs? Well, if I found out I was in something akin to the Matrix, then I may reconsider my religion. What is the Matrix? Even if we're in the Matrix, you still would have beliefs within the Matrix.
I don't know.
Oh, look at this. Translation, ask better questions. This is, yeah. Adam's asking the question, if you were wrong, how would you go about to figure that out? And TJ's answer is, you need to ask better questions because this one's silly.
Yeah, I got that too. Yeah, I'm reading Jason's, and other people have probably read it already as well. And I just want to say that just given that answer, the probability of him wearing his hat backwards went up like 37%.
I am not open being wrong about my religion. Okay, but this
exactly.
is okay, Jason. If you ever listen to this live stream, which I doubt will happen, but yeah. I want you to please, I beg of you, hear me out just for like 60 seconds, and then you can click off. I'm going to appeal to your emotions, which is an evil thing for me to do, but I'm going to do it anyhow. And please, just for 60 seconds, please allow it. How would you feel if you were witnessing to a Mormon or a Muslim and they responded like you did just now, and they say, Jason, I am not open to being wrong about my religious beliefs, and then they quoted you some scripture? How would you respond to that Muslim? What would you do? Would you just say, oh, too bad, going to hell, bye-bye? You need to really reconsider this whole idea of not being open to belief revision. Because if I know you believe Christianity is true, but if you're wrong, you're the worst person ever. Because you are stuck.
Yeah. So I'm going to stand up for Jason for just a minute. Jason, if you ever see this, credit to you for actually reading the question properly. Both SJ and JJ screwed it up. And TJ just dodged it. So at least he answered it properly.
I think people want to see us, but I'm going to make us really small and insignificant. Where should I put us that we're not in the way?
I don't know.
Just on the edge? Maybe in the very area, right up here.
I don't know. You can take me down if you want for a while or whatever.
No, I need you.
Boy, you changed your tune. Put us right next to each other if you can, Doug. Just
right next to each other? No.
Shoulder to shoulder, buddy.
I'm Canadian.
Can you put me right in, like, just in front of you, so it looks like you're like just over my shoulder?
No, that doesn't look good. Okay, next question. I don't want to read all of the responses, so forgive me if you responded to this, and I'll hopefully get to one of yours.
Can you put me like lower right? Would that be out of the way, Doug?
You're good here. If you learned that the pastor you met on a plane was no longer Christian. Oh, this is referring to SJ. Part of her testimony is that a Christian pastor shared a verse out of the Bible to her, a prophecy, and this led to her becoming a Christian, so to speak. If you learned that your pastor you met on this plane was no longer a Christian, would this concern you? Not concern for him, but in terms of the path you went in your life. No, she says. No for TJ, no for Jason. No, because this is interesting. Jason is giving me great material here. Jason says no because my faith is not founded on the testimony of man. Are you sure, Jason? Isn't it the testimony of man that you believe that that Jesus appeared to witnesses? Isn't it the testimony of the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 15? Number 6, if it's the case that people who don't hear the good word go to heaven on merit, and those that hear but reject the word go to hell, wouldn't it be preferable to wipe out all records of Christianity?
Gotta scroll it on YouTube, Doug. I'm not seeing it.
Well, it's a 7-second delay, but
is it 7? Okay.
Or maybe
all
17.
Right. All right. Now I'm seeing it. Sorry.
Oh, so Adam's asking that if people are accountable for what they know, and if they hear a clear representation of the gospel, and they reject it and they go to hell, wouldn't it be better they never hear it? And so he's saying, shouldn't we just wipe out all records of Christianity? SJ says, no, Christianity helps to explain our purpose, meaning, and hope in this life. Christianity is the only religion to explain evil and to offer salvation on our faith and belief in the source of all love and morality. Huh. It's the only religion to explain. SJ, do you not think that other religions explain? They could be wrong. I'll even grant you that they're wrong, but they still do explain evil and offer salvation. There is salvation theologies in other religions.
I would also argue against the word explain. It proposes a purpose and meaning, but it doesn't explain anything.
TJ says, who says that people who haven't heard the gospel go to heaven based on their good merit? He misunderstood the question.
Yeah. There's a trend happening here of misreadings and misunderstandings.
Oh, JJ Richards says, this question is interesting, rhetorical maneuver. It's a tactic. It is written in such a way that misses Christian theology, but also includes the same sort of yes or no demand that often accompanies the question, do you like beating your wife? However, it misses the mark for even this sort of trick because the first part of the question is completely wrong. The if statement is not recognized by any historical mainline theology. My goodness, JJ Richards. You know what a hypothetical question is? It could be totally... It doesn't have to be based in any type of reality. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be based on any type of mainline theology, J.J. Richards. This is what hypothetical questions are meant for.
I'm going to make a claim that J.J. won a lot of dodgeball games in elementary school. Just a claim.
This is why I appreciate at least the philosophically minded Christians, because they can see the value in hypothetical questions.
But, yeah, I ran into that roadblock a bit today too.
Number 7. Oh, yeah, this was my favorite. Would you prefer that everyone on earth converts to Christianity and the level of human suffering stays the same, or that everyone on earth becomes an atheist and the level of human suffering falls to 90%?
Ooh, it's interesting.
In other words, what do you value more, suffering or going to heaven, or being a slave to your God? Sorry, that was mocking, I guess. Anyhow, atheism in governments has been demonstrated to magnify evil, so the question is an impossibility.
Wow, what a terrible, terrible answers, and we've only just started.
The reason why, SJ, this is a bad answer is because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking of Pol Pot, you're thinking of Stalin, you're thinking of Hitler, but we've already talked about Hitler. He was actually not an atheist. But
she actually didn't mention Hitler.
Oh, she didn't? Oh,
no, Pol Pot, Stalin, and Mao.
Good for her. Good for her. 1,000 pine points to SJ for not mentioning Hitler. But if you look at Pol Pot's probably your best example, but if you even look at Stalin, the God in the Soviet Union at that time was the government. It was still religious type thinking instead of Enlightenment, free speech type thinking. So, and you're missing all when you're examining the evidence, a good rule of thumb is not to push evidence under the rug that you don't like. For example, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, all those countries that are pretty high on the atheist scale. I'm not sure if they're a majority. I think they are majority atheists. And yet on certain metrics, they outdo countries like the United States and even Canada on health, education. The suffering is lower.
So how do Christians like SJT deal with the Crusades and things like that? Do they just forget? I don't.
No, they just say that wasn't God's will and that these were bad, untrue, not really Christian.
Oh, the people willing to die for their religion weren't truly religious, but no one would be willing to die for their religion unless they were truly religious. Do I have that right?
Basically, if you do something, if you kill other people, you're not a true Christian. But if people kill you for your belief, then you are a true Christian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense.
You know how I always say with a lot of Christians, the issue is hell? Well, here's TJ's answer. Hell involves far more suffering than anything experienced on earth. Hence, why would I rather have everyone convert to Christ and have the same old, rather than the godless utopia? So he's basically saying if the suffering on earth goes up 90% and people still go to hell, well, then so be it. And he's answering honestly, and I think he represents probably 30% of the Christians in the United States. The issue here is hell and heaven. So this suffering on earth is just a pittance. Earth is a doormat to the great afterlife. And so you weak-kneed liberal Christians or you weak-kneed atheists, oh, you're suffering, you poor guys. Like, the real issue here is you want suffering? You go to hell. That's suffering. I think this video will be demonetized.
That's I think you just assume that whenever you have me on. Just plan on that.
I'm just seeing if these questions are answers are worth going.
Yeah, I just say this is it just seems like we're not learning anything. It doesn't feel like any. Are we? I don't know if we're learning anything. I just feel like they're pretty boilerplate answers.
This is a little different. Question 8 by Adam. How did you eliminate, if you did, infinite regress as an option? So this is about the first cause, cosmology. SJ says the Big Bang eliminated infinite regress as an option.
Why?
Yeah,
that's a serious misunderstanding of what the Big Bang says.
So, okay, SJ will not listen to anything you say, Chet. Nothing, and she won't even. She won't listen to me.
Well, that's probably because I've called her a sentient bag of garbage in the comments more than once.
But SJ,
that's probably not helping my case.
But SJ she just may listen to William Lane Craig. And I have a video of William Lane Craig saying that a universe may deflate and cause a new universe. So here, the Big Bang has nothing to do with infinite regress. Big Bang is the beginning of the expansion of our universe, which could lead to another universe, which could lead to another universe. And so if she listens to William Lane Craig, and if she at all respects him, maybe she can see that the Big Bang really has nothing to do with that. How did you eliminate the infinite regress as an option? How did you, says TJ. So that's a way of answering without answering.
Good job, TJ.
The philosophical
sounds like a street epistemologist.
Yeah, those dirty street epistemologists, always evading.
Yeah.
J.J. Richards says the philosophical concepts of the unmoved mover, contingency, and the impossibility of arriving at this point of time were infinite. The metaphysical possibilities of our timeless interdimensional God, blah blah. The scientific properties of thermodynamics, blah 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 blah. So basically he's saying, well, it just has to be the case because of philosophy and metaphysical possibilities and because of thermodynamics. What people like J.J. Richards forget is that there are concepts of universes outside our space, outside our time, outside our properties of matter with different physical constants that could have created our universe. There are ideas of cosmology that talk about that before the Big Bang, if you can even view it as before, that we just don't know what happened and that there could be an eternal material particle that has existed forever. We just don't know. And to posit a God doing it is basically an argument from ignorance. Why do you think Hindus are unconvinced of Quranic prophecy? Oh, this is a brilliant question. So Adam is doing this for a reason. He's doing this because he wants the Christian to put themselves in someone else's shoes. And that's very difficult for all people to do, not just Christians. But if you can put yourself in someone else's... So in other words, Christians, be a Hindu for 30 seconds. Pretend you're a Hindu, and then ask yourself, why are Muslims not convinced that Hinduism is true? And SJ says, no idea. Aren't Hindus.
She goes over the top rope immediately and out of the building.
Yeah.
just
Once SJ can actually put herself in, like, seriously put herself in someone else's shoes in different worldviews, I tell you, she's going to change. She's going to change a lot if she can allow herself to do that. TJ says probably because Hinduism and Islam are two different religions. Translation: ask better questions.
TJ is on it, man.
TJ, if you ever listen to this, again, you have troubles putting yourself in other person's shoes. So pretend you're a Hindu and try to just hypothesize, why is it that Muslim just can't see the Vedas as being great scripture?
I want TJ to come on and ask questions because he's got all the best ones, apparently. TJ, come on in here and fire away, and we'll grade your questions. Looking forward to it.
Jason's answers are, both the Quran and the Islamic traditions contain false predictions. Therefore, by the Bible standard of Deuteronomy, Muhammad was a false prophet. Oh, I actually like that answer by Jason. So, but the question I would ask Jason as a follow-up, if he would be so kind to let me, would be, why is it that Muslims cannot see these false predictions? Why is it when you point them out, they deny it? And they actually say things like, well, that's the wrong translation, or blah, blah, blah. And then when you can actually write that down, Jason, their excuses of why these are not false predictions, but indeed they're true predictions, and you write down all their excuses, all their reasons, and then read it back to yourself, you'll see you use the same reasoning. This is exactly why Adam is asking these questions.
Mm-hmm.
Number 10, how could I tell the difference between someone who actually knows their purpose in life according to God and someone who just believes they know the purpose from God? Great question, Adam. So basically, this question is similar to my question of if God left and forsook you 10 years ago but didn't tell you, how would you know the difference? SJ says, I don't see a reason to differentiate the two. Whoa. You know what she's saying there?
There's no difference between knowing and believing?
She's saying that there's no reason to differentiate between your imagination and reality.
Yeah.
I'll give you a reason, SJ. I'll give you a reason to differentiate. And please, don't view this as mocking. This actually might save your life. Actually, let me take it off you and put it to someone you love. This is be more powerful. If someone you love came up to you and said, I believe that taking all this acid, LSD, is beneficial to my health, and I need to take it every day, or heroin, whatever the drug, don't you think it's good to differentiate that belief from reality? Done. Next question.
Is that would be interesting, and maybe I don't know if there's any study on it or anything like that. Is there certain people that just, other than say schizophrenics, who have an issue with differentiating between imagination and non-imagination when it comes to these things? Can we study that, or is there something like that?
The scientific method is a way to differentiate imagination from reality. And again, we could still be wrong. But when we can have testable predictions on things, it increases our confidence that this is just not in our imagination, but this is something outside of ourselves. And so what Adam's asking is there anything like this for your belief in God and experiences of the Holy Spirit and so forth?
Right. How do you know you're not just making it up?
Yeah. What's the difference between you feeling the Holy Spirit or experiencing the Holy Spirit in your life and just thinking you do, but actually it's not happening? How would you tell?
Right, but we've had that explained, right? People have tried to explain that experience, especially people who say like they've been regenerate when it comes to precepts and things like that, and it's usually just like some overwhelming feeling where they just know, and then that's true knowledge. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like,
a schizophrenic just knows that there's
Yeah.
a certain person. Like,
yeah. I'm just saying that, yeah, those are the answers we get, like that it's an undeniable experience you won't know until you've had it. But it's, I don't know. Yeah, never mind. I won't waste any more time on that.
last question. Bonus. By the way, I want to wrap this up because Mike Winger's on with JMD Apologetics, and I'm going to go into the live stream chat and cause trouble. Bonus number 11. If God actually didn't have a plan and he was letting things just run their course, how could you tell the difference? So this is similar to question 10.
Yeah.
So how would you tell the difference between God's will and something just happening? SJ didn't answer this one, looks like. Oh, she did, just below. J.J. Richards, in my eyes, for this question to have any merit. Oh, so question, yeah, this... It would have to be in a very different reality than what you and I occupy. Let me expand. We wouldn't be hardwired to follow the golden rule if it was just God letting things run their course. Oh, how do you know that, SJ? She's saying that we could not have evolved to treat people kindly like we would want to be treated ourselves if things were just running their course like through evolution, that we need a God to do it.
So I would ask SJ if being mocked is part of God's plan, and if it is, shouldn't she be happy about it?
You're bad.
Well, I'm using her logic, right? I mean, if God has a plan and it's enacting, then everything is a part of God's plan, right? Or no? I don't know.
TJ answers the question, if God didn't have a plan or purpose, we would not have mountains of evidence of design in the universe. By that, I know indeed that God has a plan. TJ, this is a question that I suggest every non-believer asks a Christian or a theist. What would an undesigned universe look like? And if you say something like, that's impossible, then how can you even begin to compare a designed universe to an undesigned one if you can't even imagine it? Because we recognize design through comparisons, do we not, TJ? And if I were to, okay, you have to use your imagination here, TJ. If you were to imagine me poofing you into existence at a random spot in this universe, what's the probability you would live? And then ask yourself, does that look like a design universe to you? Done. Okay, that was fun.
Yeah, the design thing is always seems to be a product of small thinking, to me. Earth-centric. So I just want to say thanks to everybody who watched tonight and everybody who helped me in the chat with things dealing with presuppositional arguments and things like that, and anybody who even slightly smirked at any snide remark that I made. I always appreciate that because I didn't have a dad growing up. So,
I was about,
so I'll take it.
I was about to press the music, to end it. And then you said, and I didn't have a dad. And I can't press the music there.
No, that would have been even better if you would have kicked in the sexy time music. Right, I'm like, and I didn't have a dad growing up. All right, good night, everybody.
Yeah, no, okay, do it again. Okay, but straight face, come in serious.
No, I'm not an actor, Doug. I'm real. I'm true. So you had another chance right there to just cut me off.
Well, if you would have shut up for a second, I would have had time.
All right, everybody wants to get out of here. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you around sometime, probably. Doug, I miss my dad. Dad, where are you, Daddy? I just wanted your love. Dad.
Is this why you're an atheist?
Laugh at my pain. No. I don't know, man. Turn the music on, please.
It is on.
Oh, okay.
It was on while you were singing. It was beautiful.
Oh, I'll have to listen back.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with Chet, guys. If you want to follow me and do JMD Apologetics, Mike Winger, I think they're live streaming right now. Let's give them a lot of views. Have a great night.
Bye.